British and Canadian citizens can now enter China without a visa starting tomorrow. China has expanded its visa-free program to 79 countries in an effort to boost tourism and business. World shares mostly advanced and gold declined. U.S. futures edged higher. More stories at apnews.com. This is AP News. President Trump's new Board of Peace is pledging $5 billion toward rebuilding Gaza. AP correspondent Donna Warder has more.
President Donald Trump says on social media that members of his new Board of Peace are pledging $5 billion toward rebuilding Gaza and will commit thousands of personnel for international stabilization and police forces in the territory. The president says he'll make a formal announcement on Thursday during the group's first meeting. Indonesia's military has already said that up to 8,000 of its troops should be ready by the end of June for a possible deployment to Gaza. The United Nations, World Bank, and European Union estimate that reconstruction of Gaza will cost $70 billion. And despite a ceasefire deal, Israeli forces continue to carry out airstrikes. I'm Donna Warder.
More information at apnews.com. I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-60s. Breezy southwest winds increase strong 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. And then for tonight, skies become mostly cloudy, a low near 40. Tuesday, partial sunshine, a high of 57 degrees. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain early, becoming sunny, high of 64. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 37.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Good Monday morning, progressives, and welcome to the February 16th, 2026 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. You can also catch me by emailing me at richard@wcpt820.com. And, of course, you can follow me on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Substack, and Spoutable. All of the socials is where we're hanging out. And we're doing a little bit of a remote show today for those of you who might be wondering, why isn't Richard in the studio? I don't see him. I don't see the wonderful background at WCPT. And so we're doing a little bit of a remote this morning. So there you go. But happy to be with you on this President's Day. And like I said last week, make this President's Day a great day for you. Go out and find something cool to do. And maybe not. Maybe it's just staying at home and kind of relaxing and hanging out by yourself. But catch all of our shows, as always, by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can get, of course, Choose Views, featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, the great Patty Vasquez, driving you home, and It's the Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, and all of our shows and great interviews by going to heartlandsignal.com. That's the place to be. It's a lot of fun over there. And by the way, when you go to heartlandsignal.com, these are some of the things that our digital news platform have put together for you. We'll start off. Here's a good one. The name Vivek Ramaswamy is one that I'm sure is in your lexicon of names, for good or for bad. and he's a candidate for governor in Ohio right now. And it was disclosed that he spent over $750,000 on private jets last year. Now, if it's his money, that's great. But when we're talking about everyday Americans trying to get ahead and stay ahead, not just making it day to day or paycheck to paycheck, that's a lot of money in the minds of people that want to believe that he's actually doing things for the everyday person. But there you go. Just one of those great articles at heartlandsignal.com. And then this is a big one. Mike Rogers, who's running for U.S. Senate in the state of Michigan. And some of the names that we've had on WCPT, whether it be on Choose Views or on Jones' show or on Patty's show. Mallory McMorrow is one of the ones that's a big one that we've talked about before. But here's the thing. Mike Rogers receives support from ICE-linked private prisons. Interesting, particularly given that they're one of the things that everybody has asked about with regard to ICE and where they're taking people off to are these prisons that they've built and these detention centers, and where more of them are going up, or where more of them are being authorized to be built. So look into this guy. Mike Rogers. I mean, if you're in Illinois, we can't vote for that U.S. Senate seat, obviously, but that's not so much the point. What's important here is that we know who's running. As much as they want to trash our candidates and talk about our candidates, we need to be aware of what their candidates are saying and doing, who they're connected to. I tell you, in Ohio, some real, I guess you could say, landmines have been stepped on and things have been exposed by John Usted, who's running in Ohio, and his connection to the Epstein files. So there's another situation where our responsibility is to pay attention to what Republicans are doing who are running for offices in different parts of the country. Just as much as we want to have strong candidates, we want to have progressive candidates, we need to make sure that we out what Republicans are doing in any state that they're running in. And this goes back to one of my sort of common statements. We no longer have the luxury to not be involved, or be aware at least, in what's going on in other state elections, whether they be on a state level or whether they be on a federal level. We have to be mindful of that. And so check into what Mike Rogers is, what some of his links are to these private prisons. Let's see, what else? Oh, down in Bloomington, Minnesota, Police Chief Booker Hodges announced that his department arrested a guy, Brashad Johnson, along with 29 others in a sex trafficking sting. Johnson is a Department of Defense contractor who performs background checks on ICE and Homeland Security agents. The apples are not falling too far from the tree, guys. They just aren't. So pay attention to these things. Make sure that you're going over to heartlandsignal.com, because that's where you can find so many great articles and posts and interviews that we do there that will give you a lot more content and substance when you're putting together your arsenal of people that you talk to, and deflecting from those who say, oh, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. You got to give us a break. We're just trying to move things forward. No, it can be that bad. And it's part of our responsibility is to make sure that we are telling people and providing people with information. So on today's show, President's Day, we're going to be talking with a couple people, but we've also got an interview that I did with author Robbie Bach. And you guys may recall me speaking with him once before. Robbie Bach is the author of the contemporary thriller called The Blockchain Syndicate. And so that we will be airing that in the 6:30 hour today. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, if you guys remember last week, we had on immigration attorney Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who's also running for state Senate seat, in Texas. And so she's going to be with us again, because I asked her to come back because I wanted to talk with her about some of the things that we didn't cover as it relates to immigration, but specifically how our immigrant population has boosted our economy. That's not an opinion. There's data that backs it up. And Kate and I are going to talk about that in the 7 o'clock hour. And then in the 7:30 hour today, We'll have our good friend Mike Nellis joining us to talk about a handful of things. As I say about Mike, he's got something to say, a little bit to say about everything. So Mike and I will be chopping it up in the 7:30 hour. But there you go, progressives. Welcome to the February 16th show. And of course, thanks to the guys in the studio for making a remote broadcast happen. And for those who are watching on our streams, the background's a little bit different, but the show is still the same. So hang in there with us, and we'll do our best to bring you a great show today. And I'll be back in the studio tomorrow. But right now, check this out, progressives.
People try to sell you on the idea that the future is already settled. It is because it is deeply unsettled. And I think about this a lot right now because I think that, this promise of like an artificial intelligent future, as we talk about the future, is really just a collective anxiety that very wealthy, powerful people have about how well they're going to be able to control us in the future. If they can get us to accept that the future is already settled, AI is already here, the end is already here, then we will create that for them. My most daring idea is to refuse. The proposal for a post-human future is one where there will be human beings who will just be treated inhumanely. We're not going to stop making people or humans. They're just saying we're not going to treat you as humans. And I refuse. And I think that we all can. I think that being black is an act of refusal. I think we know how to refuse. I think everybody else needs to learn it from us. I think refusing is actually the more hopeful, expansive vision of the future than the one that is telling us that the future is already settled and decided. That's my daring idea. Just say no.
Just say no. Just say no. Tressie McMillan Cotton is the PhD American writer and sociologist and graduate of Emory University. Why is that clip, in my opinion, important? And that's who that was. It was at a conference that she was at, the Urban Consulate. There's a couple of things that are there, for me at least. First of all, in this month of Black history, which is American history and all of our histories, it's about resistance. One of the most important things that we can do to remain empowered is to resist. And the resistance is sometimes it starts with just your thought. How am I going to position myself if I'm engaging with someone that's talking some nonsense? Well, it's to resist. It's to be willing to push back. One of the reasons that I send you guys over to Heartland Signals so much is because I want you to be prepared, and there's so much good content and information there to help you be prepared in talking with people that are going to come at you with some garbage. So that's one of the big reasons why we want you to go to heartlandsignal.com. But being prepared for resistance is where we are right now. We don't have that luxury. I've said this oftentimes. So what she's trying to say is, in terms of the future that the techno bros, the tech bros and all the other technocrats are trying to get us to lean into, is that, hey, AI and all these developments, they're already done. It's a done deal. You really don't have any say in it, and you may as well be complicit to it. You may as well yield to it. And like Ms. Cullum says, I agree with her. I resist that. I resist them telling us what our future has to be and what it's going to look like. We get to dictate that. We get to determine that. It takes vision on our part, and it also takes us being willing to say no, to resist, and to push back. So I'll leave you with that. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the mid-1800s, many American women were expected to follow what history calls the cult of true womanhood, where men would go off to work and women would stay home, taking care of the house, their children, and husbands. During the Civil War, many women left their homes to join the fight. Thousands of women from the North and South volunteered to join brigades, while over 400 women disguised themselves as men to fight in the war. In the Union, 20,000 white and African American women worked as nurses, traveling from hospital to hospital, offering care to wounded soldiers, even helping to convince the government to create United States Sanitary Commission to create a preventive, hygienic, and sanitary service for the benefit of the Army. During the Civil War, women were faced with new duties, challenging many men's minds to what should be a proper woman's place.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us on this Monday, February 16th, President's Day. Can you believe us already? We're halfway through the month of February. Yeah, it's our shortest month of the year, but we're just chugging along and getting things done and making sure that we're prepared. And like I said a moment ago before we went to the break, what's so important is resistance. And we're seeing it all over the country. We're seeing it from the rallies and the protests and all the rest that we've been all involved in one way or the other, whether we've been an active physical participant in a rally or protest, or we're going to some of the town halls, which might be in smaller venues, but people are out. Don't let we'll start with the corporate media. Don't let the corporate media, don't let the GOP tell you that we're not out and we're not fighting. And in fact, that's why things have been so, I guess you could say, challenging, is because we are out fighting. We are doing what Ms. Cullum says. And by the way, if you guys would like that clip and would like more about her, let me know. Just send me an email at richard@wcpt820.com and I'll get that to you. But yeah, she's really somebody to kind of put in your mix of people to listen to and follow, because she's really a strong advocate of fighting back, of being prepared for the fight and making sure that you don't get caught on your heels. So I'll be more than happy to send that out to you guys. Let's hit them with a couple of Choose Views news items this morning, Devin and Mike. On this February 16th, 2026, a new report highlights economic risks of harming nature. Now, this is one that really should touch all of us. A new report warns of potentially enormous economic costs if business activity continues to negatively impact biodiversity and otherwise contribute to a significant global, quote, natural deficit. The Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services spent 3 years producing the landmark assessment, which is endorsed by more than 150 governments and likely to influence policy in multiple sectors, according to Reuters. Too often, at present, what's good for business is bad for nature, and vice versa. So this is a really powerful report that many more people should be checking out. American farmers are aging out with no successors. And we talked with John Bartman last week and Will Westmoreland. They spoke to this as well. American farmers are facing a deepening succession crisis and as rising costs and weak commodity prices push more families out of agriculture. And we talked about this. Farm bankruptcies jumped 46% in 2025 from the previous year, according to the Wall Street Journal. And the industry's aging workforce now includes more farmers over 75 than under 35, and that's according to the Department of Agriculture. That can't be, and it's been happening for a while. This decline in family farms and farming is reshaping a rural America. It's also putting us in a position where we're more dependent on our agricultural production and the results of that, i.e. produce and other items from other countries, which is going to inevitably, that to me, this is where the Trump administration, other administrations too, but particularly this administration, is so butt backwards, because that's going to make us inevitably more dependent on foreign agriculture and support. And it's a national security issue. Just like I've said before about healthcare and about education, when we don't take care of those, truly take care of those at home and prop those up, national security is a concern because we become dependent. We're less healthy, and then and less smart, and we become dependent on another country or other countries for those items. So I had to add that to the point here. Reverse recruiting takes off with desperate job seekers. What does that mean? Facing a difficult labor market, white-collar job seekers are flipping the script on traditional job recruiting and paying to be paired with new gigs. Reverse recruiting, as it's called, can be a, quote, refreshing way for some candidates to stand out at a time where there are more unemployed Americans today than there are open roles. But the price can be steep. A percentage of the client's new salary, and some old school recruiters have ethical reservations too. I think job seekers that are vulnerable can be easily swayed to pay more than they really should for the opportunity. Healthcare is drives job growth as another sector is shrinking. Employment declines throughout the country in fields such as finance and government have been powered by the labor market. Which area? Healthcare. Healthcare accounted for 82,000 of January's 130,000 new jobs. While healthcare is typically stable, economists say dependence on one field is risky if that sector slows. And according to the Wall Street Journal, health jobs that are requiring specialized training and changes to Medicare payments rates could trigger a slowdown. And last but not least, this is an interesting one as it relates to shopping and where people are spending their money. Dollar Tree targets affluent areas in a bid to boost sales. Dollar Tree's new Plano, Texas store represents a shift for the retailer. According to CEO Michael Creedon, the neighborhood would have been too fancy for the discount chain just a few years ago. But over the last 6 years, nearly half of new Dollar Tree stores have opened in wealthier U.S. areas, up from 41% during the 6 years prior, according to Bloomberg News. Shoppers earning over $100,000 are fueling the growth, according to the company. The same is true with Walmart, which, like Dollar Tree, is focusing on high-income consumers to drive sales. And I've got a couple of observations there. One, we knew that was coming because people who, all of us of any income level or any income bracket, should be looking for ways to, spend money more effectively. But now that the cost of so many things are up across the board, this is putting pressure on even folks that have a higher income or higher worth, and people are being more prudent in where they're spending their money. So this is an example. This is an indirect and now becoming a very direct result of what's happened and happening when it comes to the how the tariffs are causing the cost of things to be more expensive. This is that indirect impact. We knew it was coming. And so now the people who have higher incomes are sitting back and saying, if someone who makes half of what I make is having to pay more, that means I'm having to pay more too. I didn't find a secret place where they didn't raise the price of things, the end price, at the checkout counter price. So people are paying more across the board. That means that folks are going to do what we all naturally do, and that's find ways to offset that. So you're starting to see stores, and this is not, let me be very clear. This is not to say anything about Dollar Tree or any of the dollar price stores. Not one thing at all. If you can save money, finding a bargain is always, wherever you find the bargain. The sale rack at a big retailer, I don't care if it's, Gucci or if it's the sale rack at the Dollar Tree store, a savings is a saving. So the point of all this is that how did we get here? And I think, we can't look away from the reality and the fact that we've gotten here because we frankly took our eyes off the ball when it comes to how Republicans have always said they're down with the everyday person and they're down with helping the regular middle class, hardworking kitchen table, lunch pail person. They're not. That this is the indirect result of us frankly taking our eye off the ball and them finding that pressure point that they could do a better job with and they haven't done it at all. The tariffs have been the leading cause of the increases that we're all seeing right now, and this driving people to places that maybe they hadn't shopped before. Not that that's a bad thing, but they recognize now that they've got to spend money in a more frugal way. And so I do believe that this is going to be a trend. It's not going to be, it already is. I shouldn't say it like it's going to happen. It's already here. So we've got to be mindful of it, and we've got to continue to talk about the fact that this comes from a place, and the place that it's coming from, unfortunately, happens to be driven by the tariffs from this current administration. Thought everything was going to be less expensive, Donald. Thought everything was going to go down. Thought everything was going to be more affordable, and that's not the case. GOP, MAGA, you have an opportunity to reset the course. You really do. This is that opportunity right now, between now and the midterms, to say we've got to put the brakes on, because ideologically, you don't have to like a gay person or a member of the LGBTQ community. You don't have to like this brown-skinned fellow on the radio right now, or anybody else that doesn't look like you, sound like you, love like you, or worship like you, and all the rest. But one thing that you should have some love for, or some like for, or care for, is what's happening to your personal family budget. Your personal family budget has not gotten better as a category as a result of what the dude that's in the White House and the GOP that's propped him up in terms of elected officials. It just hasn't. Stop lying to yourself that it's gotten better. And that, and also stop lying to yourself, or letting yourself believe that some guy dressed up in drag, or some guy that looks like me, or some woman that's independent and runs a business and is successful, or somebody that's come from another country that looks like me, or a little bit lighter shade of me, is taking away any of your privilege in this country. They're not the ones. So stop lying to yourself. The reason that things are where they are is because you've allowed people that probably look like you to hoodwink you into thinking that they were going to figure everything out and do everything for the betterment of all of the country. And they really haven't. They've only done it for that very narrow percentage of income earners and wealth gatherers. That's just a fact. It's a database fact. It's my observation based on the data that I read. So stop lying to yourselves. We're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and when we come back, we'll have a special interview with author Robbie Bach of the Blockchain Syndicate. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, this is Tara Devlin for the Political Voices Network. This is America, right? We don't do kings here. No crowns, no thrones, no authoritarian cosplay. That's why we created the No Kings American Flag pin. For the low price of $20.26, that's 2026, we're keeping our eye on the prize here. This well-crafted enamel pin is the standard 1-inch American flag lapel pin. But this one features the patriotic No King symbol that defines our rallying cry. It's your quiet way of signaling to other patriots that you believe in democracy, and yeah, that still matters. You can grab yours now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. That's store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com. The No Kings American Flag pin. Get it now at store.politicalvoicesnetwork.com.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-60s. Breezy southwest winds increased around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. And then for tonight, skies become mostly cloudy, a low near 40. Tuesday, partial sunshine, a high of 57 degrees. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain early, becoming sunny, high of 64. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, Currently, it's 37.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
You're listening to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to Choose Views on WCPT. Back at the end of 2025, we had this gentleman on with us to talk about his wonderfully titled book, but it's a thriller, and I think every one of us likes a thriller in whatever way we take in our movies. The Blockchain Syndicate. It's authored by best-selling author Robbie Bach, but Robbie's resume goes much deeper than what he's currently doing and being, which is a successful author. He's also a public speaker. He's a former tech head, I guess you'd say, in the industry. And it's always cool to have a chance to talk to somebody that's done something for a long time, been very good at it, and then taken that experience and all those stories and turned it into something next in their life. And right. Robbie is definitely representation of that. Robbie, welcome back to Choose Views on WCPT, and thanks for hanging out with us a little bit this morning.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having me back. It's a little early out here, but that's the way these things work when you lived on the left coast.
Well, it's also what happens when technology where we are now. So talking about the technology in your book and all, if we go back to when you and I were freshmen in college, we could have never done this. I mean, just think about. This is what happened. I was thinking about a text that I got from a friend of mine, about something I said on the air, and he responded like with laugh emojis, and he said that one killed me. And I thought about it, and I was like, there was a time when he would have had to call me on a landline or whatever and say, "Hey, Chew, that was hilarious, dude." He sent it to me instantaneously, man. And so here you are. You're out on the left coast, the West Coast. I'm in Chicago, and we're doing an interview segment. I mean, that's just when we sometimes look at technology and all the crazy sides of it and the downsides of it, if you will. This is pretty doggone cool that we're able to do this and enjoy it and learn something. What are your thoughts about that?
It's amazing to me. This is where technology is such a funny thing because it is this amazing double-edged sword. Like I think about, when I was in college, I had to wait until 11 o'clock to call my parents because the rates got cheaper after 11 o'clock, right? that's the way it worked. And so I probably talk to them once every 3 weeks. Our kids, I talk to our kids, I talk to my grandkids anytime I want, all the time. I think about social media. I had the good fortune to go to the Super Bowl because my Seahawks were in the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir.
Past weekend. And, so I'm posting pictures and I sent some pictures to some friends and, they all see it. And we got this whole conversation. And then somebody who, I hadn't talked with in a while responds back. And it's this beautiful thing. So that part of the technology is great. And then, I watch what happens on social media. And I watch the cyberbullying, and I watch the response to, to some of the Olympians and people criticizing people, and you just go, so okay, well, technology enabled that too.
Yeah,
and it is this funny thing that people say, well, that technology is good, that technology is bad. Well, my answer is no. Actually, the technology is just the technology, and we can use it for good, we can use it for bad, and it's just a human choice. And unfortunately, as you and I both know, there's enough people who choose the wrong side of that equation to cause problems.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, cyberbullying is bullying, period. I mean, when you and I were coming along as kids and, teenagers and into college, bullying was, it was not cool then. There was no such thing, at least in our minds, cyberbullying. And in some ways, it's kind of worse because it's an endless, like the person can't escape from it. At least a physical bully, if he or she is going to roll up on you, you're going to show down with and throw down with that person, and maybe it ends, maybe it doesn't, but at least you know who it is, and you can run to your mom or your pops or your older brother or sister and say, hey, so and so is bullying me, and then deal with it. But cyberbullying in the technology age that we're in is kind of an endless thing until the authorities get involved. And even then, it isn't something that is definitely can be permeated and dealt with. So it is to your point though, it's the decision of the user in any form of technology that makes it good or not good.
Yeah, it's I try in my writing to always highlight some form of technology, how it affects us, all those kinds of things, and then hopefully people see the idea that the technology is both good and bad, and it's how it works. I mean, as an example, think about what's going on with Savannah Guthrie and her mom. It's just the most horrible thing, and yet she had a camera. The camera wasn't recording. The police still found the recording, which tells you we don't always know where things are going. That's a whole nother story. But the police still find the recording, and now they're using that as evidence to try to track down the people who've taken her.
To try to use technology to piece together the ask of community. Do you recognize this person's body movements and things of that nature? And that's really that's that side of technology where in this horrible situation with this mom, a mom to any of us in the sense that we all love our moms, has been snatched for I'm coming on 2 weeks now, but they can use technology to kind of break down what might be some characteristics of that person, the way they move and all this sort of thing to help find her. So yeah, man,
it's we have this discussion about AI and all these other things. I mean, the technology changes the world, no question about that. The lives growing up are not going to be our lives when we're adults.
No.
And the question just is, how do we use it? And
how do we use it? Family, how's your family doing? Last time we talked, we had a nice little chat about two of yours, and I was teasing you about how they probably behind the scenes were saying, yeah, we got to change how doing some of his promotion stuff. How are your children doing? How's your family doing?
Family's doing really well. We're getting ready. God willing, we will have a third grandchild in April, which I'm really excited about. Which is really going to be fun and a change of pace. And our other grandkids are growing up, and we miss them. We've been down in California for a little while, which is where I am now, and so we haven't seen them in 3 weeks. So we'll go back and this week and see them. Going to the Super Bowl, I was able to go to the Super Bowl with my son. And that's just a father-son experience. You just can't, you just can't replace.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. It's good to hear. So I'm glad everybody's doing well. Blockchain Syndicate, listen, a thriller. And I read a part of a review that really kind of caught my eye, and I'll read it to you, which I know you've seen, but I just want to read it because it leans into something. Blockchain Syndicate is fiction, but it's not fiction, but it's fiction with a purpose. It captures real world headlines with a frightening fiscal message that resonates even today in the halls of Congress. Talk about that. I mean, there's a laser focused way of describing the book and the relationship real time with where we are. That says it. Speak to that a little bit if you can, Robbie.
Yeah, one of the things, I love writing fiction. I love writing a thriller. And when I think about my goals in writing a book, the first goal is to write a great story. So I focus on the story, but I also want people when they're done to not just say, oh, that was a cool story. I'm not writing fantasy. I'm not writing science fiction. I'm not writing, historical fiction. I want people to get to the end of the story and say, that was a great story, a thriller. I couldn't put it down. Oh, wow, wait, I learned something. Oh, how interesting. And, that's hard because you can't have the message get in the way of the story. So you got to have the story carry itself, and the message has to float along with it, kind of like something that's in the water that's happening while the water's flowing down the stream. And, you're constantly in this battle. Okay, is that too pointed? Is that too specific? How do you make that happen? But that's sort of to the extent there's art in what I do, that's sort of the art of what I try to do is try to bring a great story and then have people say, oh yeah, wow, I learned something. And then look, the specific topic you talk about, the budget, people think about the budget deficit as like this, it's a problem for Congress. Congress has to deal with it. To me, it's way more existential than that.
Yeah.
Right? it's a national security threat. It's you think about the way our economy is structured and the government's ability to borrow crazy amounts of money. If people lose confidence in the dollar, all that ability goes away.
Yep.
And, that's a crazy problem. If I was another country, I'd be working hard to figure out what's my alternative to the dollar as a reserve currency. And if that were to happen, it would be a real problem for the U.S. economy. So to me, it's a real problem. It's not just sort of a transitory thing. It's something we've been dealing with for 20 or 30 years, and people gotta think about it.
That security issue leads me to a couple of thoughts. And you're right. We've been dealing with this for a long time. We need to, the thing that needs to happen is we need to put it to rest. And I know that it's an ongoing thing, so it's malleable, and putting it to rest may not be necessarily the right words, but we need to get on track to saying we're going to fix it, and it's going to be our bandwidth when it goes awry isn't going to be, it's going to be a narrow bandwidth. These are the things that we know are standards. We get over here a little bit. Okay, the course correction is like driving in an Indy, 500 car. You have a small margin of error, but that's also a win because it means that your fix is a fairly easy fix, and it's fairly one to quickly adopt and adapt to. I think that's where we have to look at all of our budgets, whether it be a city, a state, or our federal budget, because we are at risk of an outside source, and they're already doing it. I mean, right now, just looking at tariffs as an example. Right now, that's an assault on the country, and our allies have picked up on it and said, I don't know, maybe we need to connect with our other, allies to work on things until the U.S. gets their head right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, people are cutting deals with China. No, I'm sorry. People are cutting deals with China. Who would have thought we'd drive people to go do work with China? That's in fact what's happening. So it's the real problem with the issue. The real problem with the issue is that it requires trade-offs. There's no free lunch. You're going to spend less here. You're going to tax more there. Whatever your solution is, there's going to be some pain for somebody, and we don't want to incur that. And I don't think there's any way to avoid that.
There really isn't, and I think that's the conversation part of the conversation that needs to be had. Is that if we're going to address those things and have fixes that are repeatable fixes, and again, not that don't get us way off in the weeds, because when we get up way off in the weeds with fixing something like the budget, people get really ticked off because they're like, well, that's going to harm me more. In the conversation around the trade-offs, and that's, I don't want to use the word sacrifice, but the trade-offs, people then say, but that's going to hurt me more than others. And that's true because we get off in the weeds rather than saying, these are our standards. Now, there's going to be this room in here, this cushion, because without it, we will end up crashing into ourselves anyhow. But we don't need to have, we'll have a 6-inch cushion rather than a 60-inch cushion, because the 60-inch cushion is where all the bad stuff starts to happen. And you get the special, overly inundated with special interest, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we put ourselves at risk.
Totally agree.
Talk a little bit about this in relationship to the book as best you can. National security. I think one of the biggest issues that we're missing when it comes to talking about national security is healthcare and education. If we don't put the necessary energies into that, I think one of our most important tools of defense as a nation is to make sure that our people are taken care of. Their health is there, and it's not something that's always at risk and negotiated and a ping pong ball. And the same thing with education. A book is a tool, in my opinion. I think a book, whether it's a fiction or nonfiction or a textbook, is a tool of education. It's a tool of learning. But I see that that healthcare and education, if we don't get those right, then we have, excuse my language, but we got a bunch of sick, dumb people running around trying to run the show. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's 100% the case. I agree with that. And one of the challenges we have, take education, for example, one of the challenges we have appropriately, I think, we have a decentralized education system, right? I mean, I'm a fan of states and localities being able to manage their own education. I think that's great. But it means you get a good education in one place, you get bad educations in other places. And those trade-offs aren't uniform. The other challenge that we have in the education space is, what are we educating people for? And what's the definition of education? Is the definition a 4-year college degree? Well, okay. For some people, that's the right education. But that may not lead to a productive career and can lead to a lot of debt because college education, unfortunately, is super expensive. So we have to have a continuum of education that, when you're 14, 15, 16, there's pathways. And some people should go to a four-year institution. I think that's great, but some people shouldn't.
Yep.
And think about the jobs that are going to be available, which is sort of the practical side of education. If you think about the jobs that are going to be available, we're going to have to be able to educate people to do lots of different things. And some of that isn't about having a degree in English. So, that is a complex, and you try to execute what I just described in a decentralized system where everybody gets to make choices. That's tricky. Healthcare to me is slightly different. To me, healthcare, incredibly important issue, but healthcare goes back to this budget problem.
Yeah.
How much is this going to cost? How are we going to deal with the lobbying that drives up the cost of our system? We spend almost 20% of our economy on healthcare. That's more than any educated country in the world. It's craziness. And it's not because even the healthcare is that much better. It's because there's more cost in the system.
Right.
And we talk about, more insurance, which is a good thing. But, if the cost keeps going up, the insurance doesn't work. So you got to get at the hardcore center of cost. And some of that can be done at the local level, but a lot of that has to be done at the federal level.
Yeah, I think the working together is where that really the solution is going to be. You talk about decentralization. We're talking with Robbie Bach, who is the author of the Blockchain Syndicate. I'm Richard Chu, and you're listening to Chu's Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. Robbie, let me go back to something you said when you were talking about education, which I believe there's so many tools for education, for learning that we don't use. And I look at it in terms of skill set development more so than education per se. And this is when we talked earlier, we were joking around about technology. Technology has advanced so many things in our lives. And if there's an area where technology, gosh, it would be great if we were to say, you know what, not to your point, Robbie, not everybody needs to go to a four-year college. Some should go to a junior college or community college or go to trade school so that they can use technology to develop their skills to be more, effective in this environment, in this economy that we live in. And I think that's the person or the party or the group that gets that message to the masses is one that's going to really lean into one of my national security issues is education, that can get that message that it's about educating all of our communities. Unfortunately, we do have those out there that don't want to see people get educated. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I agree with you. I think the challenge here also is change in the education system is really hard. Mm-hmm. It's really difficult because there's the change in the curriculum and the approach and all those kinds of things, which you talked about, and ways in which technology can help. The challenge, of course, is you have a group of, thousands of teachers who do amazing work who have to relearn what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a type of change that is really tough for people. I'm not even being critical. It's an understandable thing. If you're a knowledge worker and you're my age, rethinking how to use AI in your knowledge work is actually quite difficult.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I actually don't use it that much. I'm just used to doing it the way I do it, and that's the way it is. If you're a teacher who's taught for 20 or 25 years, and you're a great teacher, and now the ground has shifted underneath you, rethinking how you learn to teach is actually pretty challenging. So I think you're 100% right that technology can help us, and it will. Right. But the grind in the system and the challenge in the system is change and change management and getting people comfortable with change and encouraging people to do things in a different way. And the irony is in the education space, the students will drive the change more than the teachers will.
And the administrators with absolutely,
and way more than the administrators. And that's also a tension that gets created when you're in the classroom and the student knows more than the teacher does. It's awkward for everyone.
But Robbie, that's been going on for a long, long time.
It has, of course it has.
Right, technology ain't got a thing to do with that. It's just that's been happening for a long, long time, and that's okay because I think it pushes everybody towards some form of betterment or excellence. And speaking of that, let me not forget a question I want to ask you. And I asked this a little bit last time in terms of your business experience and business acumen, how that affects your perception and your planning and developing a book like blockchain and whatever else you may have in the back of your mind. How did those skill sets and those experiences impact the work that you're doing now?
Well, I think so much of what you learn in school, as we were discussing, or in business, is about a core set of skills you have. So what are your, I call them superpowers. What are the things you're really good at? If you were thinking about yourself personally, what are your Avenger-like superpowers? What's your equivalent of the Iron Man or Black Widow or whatever? They all have superpowers. What's your equivalent of those superpowers? And for me, my superpowers are thinking about strategic planning. My superpowers are thinking about communication and influencing people. My superpowers are about taking ideas from a lot of different areas and consolidating them in a plan or a proposal or a path forward. And so when I think about my book and my writing, I apply all of those same tools and techniques, right? I'm thinking about, okay, I've got this piece of technology over here. We have this problem going on in society there. I have this theme. I have these character arcs. What's the strategy for pulling those together? And I don't do outlines. So my books don't have outlines. My books are organically written, but there is a strategy in my head, and I use that to try to bring these things forward. And then, let's just be practical. Once I've completed a book, you have to market and sell it. Yeah. It's a business, right? And, one I'm working on getting better at, but it's a difficult business. But you have to apply those skills. So you bring your superpowers to the table every day. You bring them to the table in work, and you bring them to the table in writing and communication, personal interaction. And, your job is to figure out, okay, how do I use those superpowers to really help me be better at what I do? It takes a sort of mental self-awareness that's hard for a lot of people, certainly difficult for me, to understand, okay, this is what I'm really good at. And by the way, those 3 things I'm really bad at, so let's stay away from it.
Though it's work on strengthening your strengths and acknowledge that you have weaknesses. That's something that I've always tried to incorporate as best I can. So
Sure.
let me tie this to something that you just said, though, about the development of those skill sets and recognizing the skill sets that you have. Many of my listeners all over the country are frustrated with where we are in the country, obviously, and that crosses all income stratums and social economic concerns and culture and community. And from a purely business standpoint, and we look at the political landscape that we're in, the economic landscape that we're all dealing with, whether it's 1 degree or 10 degrees of separation, we're all dealing with it.
Yeah.
So for someone that would ask me, Richard, what do I do? How do I have an impact right now toward change with the direction that they feel the country is going? What would be a couple of bullet points that you, from a leader standpoint, and from someone that's written this great book, Blockchain Syndicate, what would you say? Here are a couple things that I think just about anybody and everybody can do to affect change in this current society that we're in.
Well, it's a really excellent point. I get asked that a lot. People are frustrated and they don't know what to do. And, the frustration leads to lashing out, which isn't a great response. So the first thing I'll say is an obvious one, but I think it's really, really important. You have to vote.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to vote every time. Don't vote for the presidential election only.
Right.
Like, if you look at you got to vote in every primary. Primary voting rates are what? 25% of the people are eligible to vote?
Barely. Yeah.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
And I know it doesn't feel like it has any impact. Oh, it's just my vote. But the fact is, in most communities, there's only a few thousand people voting anyway, right?
Yeah.
So if you want a new mayor of your town, you got to go vote. And everybody in the town has to vote. And you have to find a quality candidate and get behind them. So that's the first thing I'd say. Second thing I'd say is find something you're really passionate about and spend time on it. So much of the change needs to happen. If we wait around for the government to fix things, we're going to be waiting for a long time.
Clock's going to run out, right?
Yeah, the clock is definitely going to run out. So for me, so many of the changes are about things we can do ourselves. I give, small examples. I spend a lot of time with Boys and Girls Clubs of America. I've been on the national board for 20 years. And I was at, I'm down here in Monterey, California, and the Monterey County Boys and Girls Club had a golf tournament. I went and played in the golf tournament, which was really, I had a great time. But the best part of that was afterwards, you see all these people, there's a big dinner, all these people who want to help and change kids' lives.
Yeah.
And that to me is super powerful. Now, were they there for the golf? Sure, they wanted to play golf, but they also came to the dinner. You could play golf and not go to the dinner. They came to the dinner. They wanted to see the kids. They wanted to meet the kids, and they wanted to participate in helping those kids advance. So find a local organization, find something you care about, and be active in it. And recognize the small wins. You're not going to solve their healthcare crisis. Individuals aren't going to do that. But you can do small things to go help people in need and to help people find those things. And then the final thing, I say to people is, you have to take a long-term approach to this. And you have to say, okay, I'm gonna get engaged. I'm gonna do the right things, and we're gonna see the trajectory change over time. You can't expect, what can I do to change the world? You kind of have to change it one little step at a time and allow that to roll forward. And that's super hard for people to get, but it is the path to change. Final thing. I write these letters on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I've written like 10 or 11 of them.
Let's see
and I write these letters, they're topical letters, and I wrote a letter about protesting because there was a No Kings March that actually affected the way I couldn't get out of a town because I got sucked up into a No Kings March. And I was reflecting on that. And I said to myself, I didn't even know there was a No Kings March today. So look, one of the ways you can drive change is don't be afraid to have your voice heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm writing these letters because I want my voice to be heard. I'm going to participate in the next No Kings March with my daughter because I think she's really into it. And I think peaceful protesting is a great way to have yourself be heard. So don't be afraid to step out a little bit. Anyway, that's a long answer to a short simple question, but it sort of tries to get at the individual accountability of take a step forward, take 2 steps forward, take 3 steps forward. And if we all did that, we'd be in a much better place.
Without a doubt. And that's why I wanted to ask you the question, because I look at it from a strategist standpoint, from a business perspective, because we both are business persons, and we've been blessed to do some successful things in that space. So it is about identifying and coming up with resources and tools to solve a problem that benefits all that are going to be impacted. And in this case, everybody that's impacted is every citizen of the United States. So he is the author of the Blockchain Syndicate. His name is Robbie Bach. You guys can find him on all the socials. Get a copy of his book, read it, grab a highlight, go get a book, go get a paperback version of it. Get a hard, because I'm a dog ear highlight even books like this, because I like to go back and go, that was a good passage. So Robbie, my man, it's great to see you again. I'm glad you are doing well. I'm glad your family is doing well. And thanks for taking some time to hang out with us here on Choose Views.
Hey, appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on, and all the best.
You too. Talk to you soon.
Cheers.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Hey Progressives, it's Richard Chu, host of Choose Views weekdays 6 to 8 a.m. Central. We're all anxious for the 2026 midterm election to arrive so we can restore some sanity and much-needed oversight to our government. In fact, it's the most important midterm election in American history, and Choose Views will be in the thick of it, bringing you candidate interviews on a regular basis. I'll be talking to Democratic Party hopefuls running for House and Senate at the federal and state level, as well as candidates for governor and other state and local offices.
I am in love with our ability to fight for our rights, to fight for our future, to fight for our freedoms, to fight as our ancestors fought. It's just our moment. This is just our time to stand up and to speak up. We can't give up on this.
If you miss any of the interviews live, you'll be able to find them all on WCPT's candidate interviews page at heartlandsignal.com/candidates. That's Choose Views, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on WCPT, Chicago's progressive talk for 20 years.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
WCPT Replay.
Joining us now is the brand new executive director of the Gender Cool Project, Chase Glenn.
I'm a trans man who grew up in a small conservative town in a pretty religious family, and this was back in the 70s and 80s when we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, necessarily a whole lot of support even for trans folks, and where I grew up, I didn't think I knew anyone who was trans, didn't hear any stories about trans folks. And so my upbringing really just, as I was able to discover who I was, just set me up for sort of understanding the importance of the support and the stories that organizations like Gender Cool tell.
Keep listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
File your taxes for free with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. Just file on your own in the Credit Karma app by February 28th. Valid for those who didn't file with TurboTax last year.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Today Show host Savannah Guthrie issued another appeal on Instagram to whoever abducted her mother or anyone who knows where she's being kept.
We believe. And we believe in the essential goodness of every human being. And it's never too late.
84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was last seen at her home in Tucson, Arizona on January 31st and was reported missing the next day. Lawmakers in the White House showed no signs of compromise yesterday in their battle over oversight of federal immigration officers, which led to a pause in funding for the Department of Homeland Security. A partial government shutdown began Saturday after congressional Democrats and President Trump's team failed to reach a deal on legislation to fund the department through September. Democrats are demanding changes to how immigration operations are conducted after the fatal shootings of 2 U.S. citizens in Minneapolis. In other news, AP correspondent Karen Shamas reports on Secretary of State Marco Rubio's stop in Hungary to sign a civilian nuclear deal.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio has landed in Hungary, where he is meeting with the country's Premier Viktor Orban to discuss a civilian nuclear deal. A round of applause as the deal is signed in Hungary's capital, Budapest. Rubio has headed to Hungary from Slovakia following the Munich Security Conference in Germany before that. The trip puts him in friendly territory with the leaders who back Donald Trump and resist stronger support for Ukraine. Speaking after the signing in Budapest, Rubio said,
"The relationship between the United States and Hungary today is as close as I can possibly imagine it being."
President Trump has endorsed Hungarian Premier Orban ahead of elections in 2 months. And US conservatives admire Orban's hardline on immigration and LGBTQ+ rights.
This is AP News. A Brazilian au pair got the maximum 10-year sentence after confessing to scheming with her lover to kill his wife and another man. AP correspondent Hayap Anjwani has more.
Judge Penny S. Ascaret delivered Juliana Perez Magalhães' sentence.
You do not deserve anything other than incarceration and a life of reflection on what you have done to the victim and this family. May it weigh heavily on your soul.
Magalhães pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the February 2023 killing of Joseph Ryan. She testified that she fired the shot that killed Ryan as Brandon Banfield was fatally stabbing his wife, Christine.
There is nothing I could possibly do to make it up to you. You're a loss.
Prosecutors recommended her immediate release in exchange for her cooperation, but the judge rejected that deal, sentencing her to the maximum for the downgraded charge. I'm Hayap Anjwani.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-60s. Breezy southwest winds increase to around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. And then for tonight, skies become mostly cloudy, a low near 40. Tuesday, partial sunshine, a high of 57 degrees. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain early, becoming sunny, high of 64. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 37.
Sound familiar? At Mattress Firm, we understand there are many problems that can keep you up at night, like snoring, aches and pains, or sleeping hot. Our sleep experts have the unrivaled know-how to match you with a mattress that can help. And now at Mattress Firm, save up to $700, plus get a free adjustable base with select Sealy Posturepedic mattresses. For the great sleep you deserve, visit Mattress Firm. We make sleep easy. Restrictions apply. See store or website for details.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for being with us on this February 16th, 2026. It is President's Day for those who are celebrating and enjoying it. Last week, I had the opportunity, once again, an honor of having one of our good friends to WCPT and certainly to Choose Views on my show. And we talked a lot about immigration. We talked about political races. We talked about where we are as a country right now. And that, of course, is Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, one of the top immigration attorneys in the country, straight out of Texas. And Kate was kind enough. I said to her live during the show, I said, there's one other thing that we want to talk about. It's a big thing, but it's certainly part of the immigration conversation. And I asked her if she would be willing to come back quickly so that we could get this on the table right now. Kate, good morning and welcome back to the show. Good to have you with us this Monday morning.
Yeah, good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Yeah. So, and by the way, guys, KLG for Texas, in case we don't get to it, in terms of her race for state senate in Texas. All right. So one of the things that in this conversation around immigration is that people have made, particularly those who are opposing the people that are coming across the southern border, coming to our country, because the uninformed or those that are informed but extraordinarily biased say things like they're taking our resources, they're causing. I saw a testimony, a congressional hearing where one of the Republicans said, and they're causing the cost of homes to be more expensive, and just a litany of things that folks coming across the southern border. And I like to be specific when I talk about the border because we have 4 of them. But the people who are labeled with that are oftentimes it's a 1,000% in the other direction. And when it comes to resources being given to people who are here illegally, or however the GOP wants to try to tag them with something negative. And there's all this evidence that, and not just opinion, but data that speaks completely to the opposite and in a major $1 trillion way. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about this case study, guys, that everyone should get their hands on by the Cato Institute that states that immigrants reduced deficits by $14.5 trillion since 1994. Kate, let's talk about, we always talk about the legal part, and that's important, obviously, but let's talk a little bit about the economic part of our immigration, and certainly in the last 5 to 10 to 20 years. This goes back to 1994.
Yeah, and I think this part of the conversation is where we might actually make some progress because a lot of immigration touches on people's emotions, and so someone like me, I feel a lot of emotion about immigration and the stories of immigration and the humanitarian aspect. And there are people on the other side of immigration who actually feel really afraid. And that's what's driving them. So I think what can be important, what can be helpful as we have these conversations is to just talk about the data, and that's why studies like this Cato Institute study are so helpful because there have been a lot, just so many economic studies that consistently show that immigrants add to the economy. But what's special and new about this Cato study is number one, Cato Institute is nonpartisan. Number two, this is a 30-year study. This is, maybe the first of its kind over this long stretch of time that looks at the cost or the benefit, I should say, of immigrants at all levels of government, at local levels, state levels, federal levels, and ultimately what at the end of this 30-year period have we learned? And it is what you said, Richard, $14.5 trillion surplus because of immigrants, and that at every single level of government, local meaning your city, your schools, your hospitals, your county, your state, your sales tax, your property taxes, your income taxes at the state level, the federal level income taxes, the expenditures that the federal government has on immigrants, at every single level of government and every single taxing system, by a large margin, immigrants provide more to this American economy than they take. And there is just no question about that. And so it's really important that we hammer on this data and take the feelings out of it when we're trying to actually move the needle in these conversations.
Kate, one of my good friends and a gentleman that hosts another show on WCPT, his name is Eric Grant, and the show is called The Family Meeting. It airs on Sundays from 4 to 6 p.m. And Eric talks about this so often from the vantage point that you just presented, which is the data is really where we want to get to. And in so many categories, not just in immigration, but in so many areas where we're trying to, as progressive liberal Democrats, make the statement, make the case that we have historically been on the right track of doing things the right way and getting more things done. This is irrefutable. And it's not just, I said 5, 10, or 15 years. This is going back to 1994. Mm-hmm. So that's a life. There are people who are yelling and screaming about how immigrants are taking away their jobs and causing problems for them that weren't born where the data goes back to in this conversation. And that's unfortunate that they're young. But the point is that there are people who don't even recognize that there's folks who came before you that made the path for you. And I say that a lot. Folks that came before you that made the path for you. Mm-hmm. And in many, many cases, the demographics of our immigrant population speaks loudly to this. Now, some people have said, well, it's the other immigrants. It's not the ones that are coming. But we know our strongest numbers are. That's why I wanted to identify earlier the southern border. Mm-hmm. Because this report breaks down the categories of employment, and to the extent that it breaks down where not so much the categories of employment, but the income levels. Mm-hmm. And so it does experience all income levels, but it does highlight the fact that much of the link of this to things like agriculture, things like home building, things like everyday necessities is where a lot of that money has come from. Talk a little bit about that in your experience for people who are in those careers, if you will, that happen to be immigrants to this country.
Yeah, and I think these are the jobs that we think about a lot, or that people talk about a lot with immigration: construction, hospitality, landscaping, and these are sectors that rely very, very heavily on immigrant labor, and they would fail without immigrant labor. But, and you and I have talked about this a lot, Richard, immigrants in every sector are supportive economically. I mean, in Texas, 1 in 5 of our doctors is an immigrant, and I think it's 3 of our nurses is an immigrant. 1 in 2 of our home healthcare workers, and we've got aging baby boomers. They're immigrants, but immigrants also tend to be more entrepreneurial. They're heavily represented in the STEM industries, and the innovation and tech. I mean, it's really any industry that you look in is bolstered and benefit by immigrant labor. And so it, like you said, it isn't just, oh, well, here up at the top, immigrants add, but they drain down at the bottom. No, the truth is, I mean, immigrants go to school and they go to the hospital emergency room. That is accurate. But you know what else they do? They pay sales tax. They pay property tax. They pay income tax. They support our economy. They fill our labor force. And all of those things that they do on all sectors has a 14.5, we'll just keep saying the number, 14 trillion surplus over a 13-year period. It is so much money.
Kate, you and I can have some fun with this. That's a heap of money, y'all. It just is. But listen, Kate and I are smiling and talking about this because it's something to smile about and to be excited and joyous about. And part of the reason is so oftentimes the conversation, to your point earlier, is the emotional one. And I get that in the conversation about immigration. And it should be to some extent. And it also should be how excited we can be about what people have always brought to this country. And in many ways, people ask me, well, Richard, why do we not see more, see more immigrants in certain communities at certain levels of success in corporations? Well, my simple answer is discrimination and bias. It starts right there. But the counter to that, the upside, as I like to phrase it when I'm talking to people, but look at all the businesses that many immigrants have started. And unfortunately, it's the reaction or response to the discrimination. They go out and start their own thing and build it and grow it into something that becomes another successful neighborhood business. And it becomes a thing that people go to. We could talk about restaurants, we could talk about supplies, stores, and all the rest. But ultimately, the discrimination that many have faced, the reaction was, okay, well, we'll go start our own. And that's what a lot of folks in our country don't get, that the success of a lot of neighborhood local businesses has been a response to discrimination in corporate America. And I know that you've watched that in your work from a legal perspective. You're dealing with so many other things, but this is one of the beauties of what this report is generating, is that this is what folks just decided to roll up their sleeves and pull up their bootstraps and go get something done that's benefited our country.
That's a really unique perspective, Richard. Necessity is a mother of invention. And I love that perspective that so many immigrants are entrepreneurial because they must be, and what a benefit this is for us at the end of the day. But the other thing that I'm thinking about is what else you touched on, which is the celebratory aspect of this, and how we're having fun and we're smiling and we're feeling appreciative of immigrants, and how much of that we really have been missing. And we have been caught as progressives in this defensive conversation around immigration since like 9/11, but definitely since the first Trump administration. And the Biden administration was pretty quiet on this stuff. And so what we've had is this big, loud anti-immigrant messaging. And then we've had some defensive messaging for immigrants from the Democratic Party and progressives. What we haven't yet gotten to is, carrying forward the Bad Bunny Super Bowl message, the celebration, the absolute appreciation, admiration, and respect for what immigrants provide to this country. And I think that's kind of what we're feeling right now in this upswell. Just later today, I'm going to speak at a rally where a bunch of high school students in Texas are coming to protest at the Capitol. The kids are hitting the streets. It's so good, and it's like, this is what we've needed. We've hungered for this celebratory aspect of it. And let's counter let's counter the other side of the narrative with joy and celebration. I love that idea.
Yeah, and that's the thing that that so many people have said, don't let them rob your joy. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we are talking to immigration attorney, candidate for state senate, Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch. But today we're talking about the upside and the joy of what our immigrant populations have brought to this country for decades, and a report that those of you who are trying to find ways to be more proactive and less defensive, and I'll say this from a positive standpoint, more offensive, going on attack with joy and excitement and positivity about what our immigrant populations have done to benefit our lives. 14.5 trillion with the T dollars since 1994. That's something that frankly a candidate that supports immigration could actually run on. It's also something, hint, hint, that's also something that any of us who are in this fight to push back on ICE, to push back on the narrative that the folks that are coming from the southern border, because that's who's really being focused on, and folks that are coming from brown countries, because that's really who's being focused on, we could take a different approach, or at least add this to our arsenal, and that is look at what these folks, our brothers and sisters from across the globe, have brought to our country, and be unapologetic about it. That's what I want to see more of us do. As progressive liberal Democrats do, is be less apologetic. Just take the offense and say, no, look at what we have done, and there we go. So, Kate, let's talk about where you talked about speaking, you talked about children, and that's something that we maybe don't get to talk about a lot, not just you and me, but in general. What our children are saying about where we are right now, and how these younger voices are out and protesting and marching and pushing back. What's that going to be like? What's going to be your message today when you have that opportunity?
Well, it's been really interesting here in Texas because the kids have been marching. I've gone to several of these marches, and they're so inspiring, uplifting. And our governor, it's so embarrassing. Greg Abbott has gone after these student protesters and any of the school districts that support them. And he's, trying to fire teachers and target these student protesters. And they're doing it anyway. This is a massive multi-school protest at the state capitol across the street from the governor's mansion. And so my message to them is going to be, keep it up. Don't let them bring you down. And if you get detained, write your college essay about it. Go on and thrive. This is awesome. Keep it up.
That's good. That's good to hear. That's really good to hear. I had I was in doing some just research is not necessarily the right word, but you read one article, and then obviously inside of that, or read one report, I should say, and inside of that is a link to something else, and then you suddenly you become a momentary expert, or certainly highly curious on that subject matter. And one of the things that I came across, and I'll read it to you real briefly, is 6 ways to support immigrants right now. And I think it's one. So I'll start real quickly. Tell Congress our communities are stronger with immigrants. Stop detention and deportations now. Number 2, sign up for our monthly newsletter, and this comes from the AFSC. Sign up for our newsletter and webinar now. Third Tuesdays, protest, resist, and build with AFSC. Number 3, join protest in other actions in your communities, like you were just talking about. Number 4, promote messages emphasizing that immigrants make our communities stronger. Number 5, accompany immigrants in your community. And number 6, donate to organizations like American Friends Service Committee, who put together this brief piece that I found as a result of looking at the Cato Institute. What are your thoughts about those things that folks can be doing actively when it comes to supporting immigrants right now in the face of what we're dealing with?
Totally agree with that list. I think it's a really good list. And I'll note that number one is to continue to communicate with our legislators. These calls really do matter, even though sometimes it feels like they go into the ether. But I think that this is a really excellent list. What I'll add to this list is something that I realized the morning that Alex Preddy was murdered. And I was so distraught when I saw that video. And I called a friend of mine who is the chief of staff for a congressperson in the U.S. Congress. And I said, I need something else. What else can I tell people to do other than call their congresspeople? And she and I had this conversation about all these folks in our midst who have stopped paying attention because it is too painful. They've shut off their social media. They're not watching the news. They're living out in the country. They're kind, caring people, but they are intentionally oblivious. And, you know, we can sort of reserve judgment about that for now, but every one of us has 5 of those people in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And what we need to also be doing is reaching the people who are not seeing this stuff on their news feeds, because we really are, you know, in our echo chambers, and our algorithms are feeding us what we want to see. And there are people who are not opting into that system anymore, and they actually don't know about what's going on. And so I'll add to just regular conversations with people who might be unaware. Is really important, because this overall, you know, tipping the needle into the public opinion, falling so steeply against what Trump is up to, this is because regular people are becoming aware. And so that's up to us who are paying attention and we're up on the news, because it's a hard thing to do. It's a job and it hurts your heart. And a lot of people have decided not to do that.
Yeah, and that's part of the goal. I would say that the biggest singular goal that they haven't told us is a goal, but we can see it as a result of how people are, is that right there, which you described, is people have disengaged and tuned out. Not everybody, but that's what they want, because they know that the power of the people, and it sounds like, you know, you and I are rewinding to the 60s and the civil rights movement, but the power of the people is what changes things. And we can look at any great leaders in our time, Kate, that have been assassinated. It's when they started to pull different factions of people together. And as that started to happen, then that person was no longer with us, because they touched the nerve, which is to bring people together. So staying engaged and talking to folks and having the conversations is so critically important. The other thing you got to do is you got to support folks like Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch, who are running for leadership roles in the state of Texas in the Senate, and work that she does to actually sleaze up, elbows deep, working with immigration concerns in our country. So Kate, as always, it's great to hang out with you. Thank you for spending some time this morning to talk about the economics of immigration and how our brothers and sisters in that space have really done such a great job of boosting our real numbers and our data there. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me on again. I always love it.
And be safe today with your in the speech that you do, but do your thing. We're going to be sending you some good love and support.
Thank you.
All right. Be well. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is Tony Moret. I'm an estate planning attorney who drafts living trusts and wills for my clients. You have probably heard my ads here on WCPT for the last few years. Your fellow listeners, when we have completed their plans, say, I wish I had done this sooner. It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it would be. We can complete your estate plan within 30 days or less. There are certainly decisions that need to be made, but my 30-plus years of experience will help guide you through this process. There may never be a perfect time to start, but whenever I'm asked when is the best time, my answer is always the same. Now is the best time, while it is on your mind. Being able to tell your family that you have an estate plan in place, that all the details have been taken care of, will be a great relief to both yourself and those you care for the most. Our initial consultation is without charge, and there is no obligation. My phone number is 847-996-0496, and my website is moretlawoffice.com, spelled M-O-R-E-E. I look forward to speaking with you.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-60s. Breezy southwest winds increased around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. And then for tonight, skies become mostly cloudy, a low near 40. Tuesday, partial sunshine, a high of 57 degrees. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain early, becoming sunny, high of 64. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 37.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
From the headlines to the heart of the city, Richard Chew breaks it all down. You're back on Chew's Views.
Back to the show. Today on Live Local Progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and talking to State Representative Stephanie Kofowit, candidate for Illinois Comptroller, Paul Glasser's editor-in-chief of the Washington Monthly, and Marjorie Hershey, Indiana University political science professor emeritus and congressional Illinois interviews. Live Local and Progressive, that's Joan Esposito here on WCPT AM 820, 2 to 5 p.m. on heartlandsignal.com, and tune in. Tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics Podcast, and they will be co-hosting, and their guests will include congressional candidate Junaid Ahmed and comedian Damon Williams. Also this week, Agnes Gray, Jane Ruby of the League of Women Voters, comedian Paula Poundstone, and a slew of 2026 candidates and more. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. Weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, tune in, YouTube, Facebook. Tomorrow, I'll be talking with Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss, Amanda Fitzpatrick, Director of Communications of the North Carolina Democratic Party, will be talking about our event down in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Legal journalist Adam Glassfeld and content creator Rachel Hawk. Today, as we wrap up today's show, I'm hanging out with my man, Mike Nellis. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him his introduction because he's earned it. He is the founder, the host of Endless Urgency Podcast. And if you aren't checking it out, you're just wasting your time. You got to get with Mike's his work, and he's been all over the map as always. And I say a guy that talks a lot, that knows a lot about and talks a lot about everything. Mike, good morning. Mike Nellis, welcome to Choose Views.
Morning, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I am fighting that seasonal sinus infection, and wow. Yeah. But I'm doing all the normal over-the-counter stuff, and you know how it goes. But no, I'm doing great, man. I'm talking with you. I had a chance to chat with Kate Lincoln-Goldfinch a moment ago, and she's just a powerhouse. I mean, I use this phrase a lot, and you will get this label as well. Someone that sleeves up and elbows deep in this fight that we're in. And she is one of those folks literally on the ground when it comes to immigration, as an immigration attorney, and someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. She's also running, and you may know this already, she's running for state senate, the seat that James Tallarico has down in Texas. So she and I were talking about this reality of the numbers, not our opinions, but the numbers when it comes to immigration, and how, I mean, the money that's been provided and presented to our overall economy, $14.5 trillion, a report from the Cato Institute. So it was great to talk to her, and of course, great to have you with us this morning. I love your interview and segment that you did with Adam Mockler about the breaking the Epstein class and taking back America, and then also the new label that's out there by Thomas Massie as the Epstein administration. So lay it on us, Mike, in terms of your conversation with Adam Mockler when it comes to breaking the Epstein class.
Yeah, so I love my buddy Adam Mockler, Chicago local. Everybody check him out on YouTube. He's an absolute he probably might be one of the hardest working content creators.
Yeah.
Where I've kind of evolved to as this Epstein scandal has played out, and really just the Trump administration via large, is I want to leave all the wars of the past behind. I don't care who you voted for in 24. I don't care which candidate you picked in 2016. If you voted for Hillary or Bernie, I don't want to fight with you about that anymore. I only care about the following thing. Are you a part of the Epstein class, or are you not part of the Epstein class? And that's why I have no problem, like, on the internet, actively supporting Thomas Massey's reelection campaign, because they are coming at him hard.
Yep.
And Miriam Adelson and a bunch of the other Epstein class mega donors are spending so much money trying to make an example of him for standing up to Trump. And he needs to win. And to be honest with you, I've never donated to a Republican candidate in 20 years. And I'm thinking about maxing out to make sure that he has enough money to fight back. So it's insane. But that's where we are right now. There's two classes in this country. It's the Epstein class and it's everybody else. And if you think that only matters relative to what we know or don't know in the Epstein files, I disagree with you, because the same group of people that are being protected from abusing and trafficking kids on Epstein's Island are the same people who got a tax cut in Trump's big, beautiful, ugly bill over the weekend. I almost cursed there, Richard. Talking about the big BBB. It's the same group of people that crashed the economy in 2008. It's the same group of people that are a part of the most corrupt presidential administration in American history, from Howard Lutnick to RFK Jr. to a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's really scary. And I think if we're ever going to get back to a moment where our politics are civil again, productive again, where the average American family can buy a house and retire with dignity, and by the way, do it on one income, take a vacation every now and again, send their kids to college, take care of their parents, like a lot of millennials are doing right now because their parents aren't doing well enough financially. We have to break these people, because they are stealing from us. They are abusing kids. They are acting with impunity. And I'm basically done with any other fight other than that.
Well, and Mike, I think we kind of knew we were going to get to this point. What do I mean by that? You and I, our goal is to get to the end successfully. We may approach it differently. Our route may be a little bit different. You might say something a certain way. I might say it a different way. But ultimately, if I'm going to get into this foxhole and fight, I want cats like you on my side, because I know that Mike's going to say, look, Chew, I don't agree with that part of what you just said, but the bigger picture, I know we got to get home. And I've always carried this sort of thing around. My number one responsibility every single day is to get home. And that you can layer that over a lot of things. My number one responsibility to you as my professional colleague and my friend is to make sure you're good. And that's how I feel about so many people that I've been blessed to be able to work with. Doesn't mean we're always going to get right about everything. And right now it's about picking sides. And I knew we would all get to this point. And when you think about it based on the way in which you just laid it out, right now, those links are there. And we've been saying it for the longest time. We've been saying that these are the people that are the ones that they helped to crash the economy. They benefited from it. They got bailed out. They kept growing. They kept grabbing up resources. The housing issue that we have right now is a direct result to 2008 when our financial markets crashed, and the inflation on the increased costs, the inflated price of property took off as we started to come back. Who benefited from that? Not everyday regular folk. And I read a report earlier about the number of people now that make over $100,000 a year that are now shopping at Dollar Tree. So we've said, and that, not to denigrate Dollar Tree, but the point is we found our way to the fact that I don't need to have to agree with everybody on everything, but the one thing that I know I got to do is pick the right side. And Eric Grant, who hosts the family meetings, was saying this for years. You have to stand on which side you're going to stand on. And right now, we know that that's where we've got to be. And that's why I wanted to start off in talking about your segment with Adam about breaking the Epstein class.
Yeah, I mean, I went to work for Bernie Sanders in 2015 and 2016, and it wasn't because I agreed with Bernie on everything, but it was because I agreed with Bernie that people were getting taken advantage of in the economy. And like, I loved Barack Obama as president. I was grateful to see him this weekend get cheered at the NBA All-Star game, which I know is driving Trump crazy right now because he wishes he could have a fraction of the organic admiration that exists for that man. Instead, he's got to accept fake peace prizes from FIFA and stuff like that. But it's so funny to me. But I saw what was happening there, and Bernie saw it. And Bernie, I think, was the first one from a major standpoint. You can feel whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. He's good in some ways. He's problematic in others. But like, he cut right through the BS in the corporate media and started to talk about this. And it's only gotten dramatically worse over the course of the last 10 years. So I think the Epstein scandal, the Epstein cover-up, becomes a window to get people there. Because I believe in order for Democrats to succeed in 26 and then ultimately in 28 with a Democratic president, we have to run on the most ambitious set of economic populism policies that we've seen since FDR and the New Deal. We have to rebuild the New Deal. We have to create something better on top of it, particularly because the job market is going to get killed with AI and robotics, and nobody ever wins a fight with technology. We might be able to box it in and prevent ourselves from accidentally
containing it.
Contain it. But like, we're good. That's going to change the nature of the job market. So we have to make sure that people who are already hurting in the current economy are not hurting even worse in the next economy, because that'll create more instability and more chaos and more Trump-like candidates, in my opinion. And then the other side of that is we have to go hard on corruption. We just have to. And so I'm channeling, and I sound like a typical Democratic strategist for this, but channel FDR on the economy. We got to channel Teddy Roosevelt on corruption. We got to break these people up. We got to break these monopolies. We got to send these people to prison if we can prove the crimes that they've committed. We have to go deep, and we got to stop being so afraid of taking on this class of people because they have money. Like, congratulations. Like, I don't begrudge anybody for being successful. I'm a small business owner. I've been successful and, built and sold a couple of multi-million-dollar businesses, but like, it's got to be fair, and the system can't be rigged for you so that you can do anything you want. That's not right.
No, and this is the conversation, and I want to ask you this question. When you talk about somebody like Thomas Massey, who he got, they went right after him. When I say they, talking about Pam Bondi last week, went right after him. Because, they came prepared to not really solve anything or to talk about anything legitimate. They came prepared to just kind of burn people, i.e. the burn book. But when you encounter someone like a Thomas Massey, who is running as a Republican, which is no surprise, but he's trying to do the thing that so many people are asking for, which is to out this craziness and to put a spotlight on the wrong, like Ro Khanna. I mean, they're the prototypical partnership that I think we all know we kind of have to have. How do you navigate, or how do you want people to try to navigate is getting past the R and what that stood for, because we can't run away from that, because some of the votes and some of the things that he has stood for has helped us get to where we are. How do you navigate or help people navigate through in this moment? This is that time when we've got to kind of put that down as best we can for the greater good, which is to get us back on track and have the right people in offices.
Well, this is like a messy enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation. Like, I don't know how else to describe it, because I'm sure that if you locked Thomas Massey and I in a room and we tried to solve some problems, we'd kill each other. Like, although I will say, as I've just like read up on him, he seems like a perfectly pleasant fellow. So like, maybe we'd end up getting along. I don't know. But I think we've just got to realize we're going through a realignment in American politics where things are really weird and different. And you read about them, you read about like the Dixiecrats just like switching sides in the what was it, in the 60s?
60s,
like,
yeah.
Oh, that must have been weird. Like, for all those like members of Congress just suddenly be like shifting all around. But like, that might be what's happening here, right? And so there's a little bit of a shift. More importantly than that, I think our politics have become so inauthentic. And that's, by the way, not just the Republicans. It's also plenty of Democrats who don't believe what they say. They promise they're going to go to Washington and they're going to end insider trading. And then suddenly, like, they're the ones who are insider trading and quadrupling their net worth in their first year in Congress. And that stuff sucks. And to me, it's, if I see somebody in Washington that seems like they really believe in something and they're willing to put something on the line, I will gravitate naturally towards that person, even if I disagree with them. And for Thomas Massey, he's put his reelection on the line. And his staff have been threatened repeatedly by the FBI that they'll be brought up on fraud charges if he doesn't drop the Epstein investigation. So there's real stakes in this for him and his staff, and they continue to pursue forward. And I get asked a lot relative to this conversation how I feel about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't talk about her the same way I talk about Massey, and here's why. I hate that when there are Republicans who announce their retirement or they leave office, then they suddenly have a spine against Donald Trump. Tom Tillis, who's the senator from North Carolina, didn't find his anti-Trump voice until he decided not to run again. Don Bacon in Nebraska, same exact thing. That is not a profile and courage to me. So Marjorie Taylor Greene going, hey, everybody, the economy's bad and this Epstein thing is gross. Like, I'm grateful to have the voice in the mix because she'll move some people, but I'm not going to stand alongside her when she quit her job on the day that her pension vested and she left office when she promised her constituents she would serve 2 years. If it's a sincere change, stay and fight. Make them beat you in a primary. And then you can go do whatever you want, start your podcast, go on The View and have fun and all that. But it's just, that's not a profile in courage to me.
No, and it's a great way to isolate the differences in the two. One of the things that I think about, and let me take care of this. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu, and we're talking with political strategist and the host of Endless Urgency, Mike Nellis. Mike, one of the things that popped into my mind as I started to watch some of the things that Thomas Massie was saying and his work with Ro Khanna and all this, very specifically with regard to Epstein, but some other things too, is I thought this is that moment where, and maybe it was too late, that him running as an independent would really, I think, could have really even propped him up more with a lot of sort of moderate Democrats in the state that would have said, you know what, this guy is saying the right things, and I do believe in what he's saying and what he's trying to do. I'm not saying I'm right about that. I'm just saying it popped into my brain. It's like, if this is that moment where someone truly could have run as an independent and saying, you know, I see issues with both sides, mine in particular, my party, my GOP, but you know, that die's already been cast at this point. But it is something that I wondered, how would he have been viewed by the constituency at large for the entire state had he decided to come and run that way? But here we are. Let's go back to something you said earlier when we're talking about the economy. Trump's economy is in the toilet. There's no other way of putting it. People try to tap dance around it and try to find a bright spot so they don't look like a negative person. But sometimes pointing out a negative thing is a positive thing to do, because at least it says you should have some clarity. Trump's economy is in the toilet, and it's for some very broad reasons and some very specific reasons. The number one reason in my mind that not enough people talk about, he just doesn't know what he's doing. Yep. And we get into the specifics of the tariffs. And I hear some people say, well, tariffs are good and they've got to, we know that. That's like saying water's wet. I use that phrase a lot. But Donald Trump does not know how to run a business or an organization. And he's proven it time and time again with the failed businesses prior to running for president in 2016. So here we are again with the guy that doesn't know how to run an organization, how to run a business successfully. And now we've got this failing economy. What do you think is going to be, if there is anything that will pull us out of this, where we're headed? Is it just the midterms, or are there other things that you see as signposts along the way that can help that?
Yeah, well, let me go one layer deeper on why Trump is so bad on the economy, because yes, he's a terrible business owner. What he is very good at is being a carnival barker and being a con artist to make money for himself, which is, you know, Trump brand water, takes it to bankruptcy, makes himself a bunch of money on the back end, like stuff like that. Which, like, as an actual like self-made small business owner who's had to like build a business from scratch and build a team of like 50 people, and like it drives me crazy when he talks about business, because I'm like, you don't know anything. Like, the guy was handed a bunch of money from his dad and he just goes off and abuses the system.
Branded himself. He branded himself.
He's an incredible marketer. Like, I think you have to give it to him on that. I don't like the guy. Even when he was like on The Apprentice and I was like 16, I was like, this is your king? Like, this is the show that like, millions of people are watching?
Yeah.
I've been a long time Trump hater. Like, I feel like I was just early to the ship on that. But it was just a little bit of a humble brag there, I guess, at 17.
No, I get it.
But the reason that he's so bad on the economy is yes, everything you just said. And he's so disconnected from the day-to-day lives of the average American. He doesn't understand what it's like to bring coupons to the grocery store and try to manage your budget so that you can spend $150 at the grocery store, take care of your family for a week or two. Just doesn't understand having to scrape that by, because he's never had to work a real day in his life. And so when he talks about inflation, when he talks about the beautiful word grocery store that nobody used until I came up with grocery, like it's so insane. And that's why he acts so callously about the economy. If he had had one day in his life where he had been broke, he would understand and at least be able to talk about it and try to maneuver it differently. And then to your point about how they don't know what they're doing, Howard Lutnick, who was the Commerce Secretary last week, was, you know, when I came into office, I didn't know how tariffs work, and I had to read up and find out how tariffs work. And I'm like, seems like a pretty important thing for the Commerce Secretary to know how tariffs work. Like, you can't just drop random people in office because they were your buddies on Epstein Island and expect that they're going to do a good job. So they're doing a bad job. What will break here politically in the country is he's already lost. He's negative double digits on the economy. With independents, the number's horrific. It's like negative 30 some percentage points at this point. And the only reason it's still holding up is because Republicans are still largely with him because of partisan bias and sort of conservative news media. If the stock market tanks and we have mass layoffs, like really mass layoffs, like 2007, 2008 style mass layoffs, then we'll find out what the floor is here. And my guess is that the floor for Trump is going to look something like 28%, which was roughly the floor when we ran George W. Bush out of office in 2007 and 2008. If we get to that point, it's going to be pretty special what that election is going to look like for the Democrats, in my opinion. I don't want it to happen because I'd rather 401ks not be obliterated. But I would also love to run this guy out of office with pitchforks so that we can sort of bury him. In my opinion, the way we buried George W. Bush, although now 20 years later, people go, remember how nice Bushy was? And I'm like, no, that was also horrible. Don't memory hole how bad that was.
Yeah, I mean, let's not justify another bad with a lesser bad, or a bad with a lesser bad. I would like to say, in my opinion, Bush was a worse president than Trump. Now it's close. Getting closer every day. But Bush is still somehow a worse president. Like, okay, so Trump, he hasn't gotten a million Iraqis killed yet.
Okay, all right, there we go. I mean, I was going to say, where's the what's your definers there to make that statement? And I don't necessarily disagree with you. I mean, the what it's proven, that statement, I believe, what it's proven and continuing to be part of our conversation is that, as awful as people might say Democrats have been in the White House or in areas of elected leadership on a national level, it pales to what's happening right now with this president and the GOP. It just does. And that.
Sorry to interrupt, but there are multiple polls in the last couple of weeks that show that the majority of Americans wish Joe Biden was back in office right now. And I want to put that in context to people. When Biden left office, he was about as unpopular as Jimmy Carter was, which is a historically unpopular one-term president. Yep. So it's crazy to me that it's so bad that people are like, I miss Joe, because people were really upset with Joe Biden on his way out the door.
Yep, they were, and largely because of the way the election, how that whole, how that fell apart. Oh. Not just because of how they looked at things when it comes to economic issues, but doggone it, how did we get here? And that was in the lap of Joe Biden. But the point that I want to come back to something you just made a moment ago about the lack of support that Trump would get if we saw the economy slip to that level. I don't want to see that. I don't know anybody in their rational mind that wants to see that as the thing that will break this party. But unfortunately, it's got to be, again, another quote from Eric Grant, it's got to be fiscal or physical pain, neither of which I want to see. We are seeing physical pain from our brothers and sisters who are immigrants that are fighting with ICE. But I do think that we kind of broke, or certainly bent them, meaning ICE, in Minneapolis. And it's good to see that, and I'll believe it when it's completely done, like Governor Walz did say. It's good to see that they're kind of moving on. And I love his comment where he said, listen, I'll help you pack your bags and drive you to the airport or whatever we got to do to get you out of here. But that's been,
what a Minnesota response that is.
Right?
That's not the way the people of Chicago would let ICE leave their city.
Hey, I'll come by and help you pack up and give you a ride. What a Minnesota thing to say.
I'm married to a Minnesotan, man. Sometimes we get into a drag out knockout fight and I need like several hours alone before I can even look at her again. And she'll be like, you want to go get dinner or something? And I'm like, no, I'm mad at you right now.
That reminds me of the classic scene in it was not Coach Carter, with Morgan Freeman and Robert Guillaume, and they're just fighting like hell. And then at the end of the scene, they say, "You want to go get some dinner now?" So that's kind of I'll send it to you. But Mike, we talk about a lot of different things, and ultimately, I think right now everybody is looking for what can I do? How can I just grab onto something? There are a lot of people that have been disenfranchised, and a lot of people that are turned off. They're worried, they're fearful, and they should be about going out. But what is it that you consistently are seeing and are saying to people that we got to do right now if we're going to win this fight?
Yeah. So I'll give you a top line, and then I've got sort of three areas I direct people. So the first thing is, there continues to be this idea that we're going to have like one big action or one leader is going to emerge and they're going to save us. And that is not going to happen, folks. We need a million little acts of resistance every single day. And what I remind people is sometimes those acts of resistance are showing up to a protest and blowing whistles against ICE and recording what they're doing. And other times it's just being a good dad that day when you're stressed out, or taking a nap when you're tired and just making sure you take care of yourself. They want to exhaust you to the point that you give up, and you can't do that. So you have to take care of yourself. Yesterday was beautiful out. It's even nicer today in the city of Chicago. I went hiking in Indiana at the Indiana Dunes. Didn't have my phone for like 4 hours. It was amazing. I highly recommend people do stuff like that. That was my act of resistance yesterday, along with recording like 14 YouTube videos and sending notifications and, you know, being the workaholic that I am. So that's the top line. The more specifically though, I view this at like 3 different levels. The first is, you know, if you want to get involved in electoral politics, you have to win elections in order to gain power. I know that it's become this sort of thing that Democrats say all the time, like, don't, you know, I always remember Obama be like, don't boo, vote. And I'm sort of like, boo and vote, please. But, you know, go out there, find a candidate you believe in at any level, go knock on doors for them, run yourself. We need more people to run. I think it's important. The second thing is the activist lane is going out and being a part of these community groups that are getting set up. ICE is going to be coming back to Chicago any day now to create the kind of chaos they did in Minneapolis, making sure that you're part of your neighborhood group, being just useful in that, and trying to like help protect people, bring them groceries, organize pickups. Like there are people who are afraid to pick up their kids at school because they're going to get grabbed. So that people are having to organize stuff like that. And I'm doing that in my neighborhood right now. Highly recommend people do that. And the third one is, and this is one of maybe the most uncomfortable for people, go have a difficult conversation with someone in your life who you lost touch with because of politics. Because I think liberals got very accustomed to, I'm mad at my dad because my dad believes that, or my college friend voted for Trump and I don't want to talk to them anymore because now I view them as toxic. And if they're actually toxic for your life, cut them out. I get that. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. But there are so many people right now who are watching how bad the economy is, who are watching the corruption in Washington, who are seeing what's happening with the Epstein files, who are angry about the murder of Alex Preddy, who need to have a conversation with somebody to give them an entry point back to reality where the rest of us would like them to be. And if we don't create the conditions for people to come back, we're going to lose again if the only people who talk to them are MAGA conservatives. And I recognize that's a hard thing to ask people to do because I'm asking you to essentially be the adult in the room, but I need you to be the adult in the room right now because they're not going to come to you and go, I'm wrong. Nobody ever does that.
No,
right? You've got to create that entry point. And just to put a finer point on it for a second, I did a Daily Wire, which is one of those big media conglomerates for the Republicans. They have a show called Bar Fight. They flew me to Nashville to argue in a room of like 40 drunk MAGA Republicans against one of their top debaters. His name was Michael Knowles, and he and I debated, and I got to pick a claim. And I made my claim about the Epstein files, and I made my claim about the Epstein class, and I made my point and boxed Michael in because he couldn't get away from Trump on Epstein and couldn't recognize the truth. And at the end, the people in the bar voted. And Michael has never lost a debate where people voted. You vote blue or red on a panel. And for the first time ever, and they cut it out of the show, by the way, which really drives me crazy. But the whole room voted with me. And then afterwards, people were like hanging out with me and buying me drinks. And I probably don't agree with these people on 80% of stuff, but they were with me in that moment. And I felt like for those 40 people, maybe not all of them, for most of them, I inched them a little bit closer where I'd like them to be. And I got them to ask some tough questions. If everybody did that right now, we'd be in a better place.
Mike, that's great sage wisdom at your chronologically young age. But thanks for hanging out with us, man. And we're going to talk about this.
I'm 40, Richard. Like, don't make the people believe I'm a child.
I know you're not a child.
It's like Adam Mockler's like 22 and like 12 million followers on YouTube, and I'm like, what is that? How do you have that influence at 22?
The three of us have got to have a conversation. Mike, thanks for hanging out with us as always. Stay safe today. Get out and enjoy the weather. You guys, Mike Nellis, just endless urgency and just a great dude.
Stephanie Miller here. If eating is stressing you out, you're not alone. There's so much confusion around food. One day something's good for you, the next day it's not. No wonder digestion can feel chaotic. What I learned from the Tummy Whisperer is reassuring your body isn't broken, it's communicating. It needs proper guidance. That's why I trust Renee Barish at Digestive Health Solutions as a certified digestive health specialist. Renee works one-to-one, helping people make sense of their symptoms without extremes or overwhelming them. If you've changed your diet and feel the same or worse, if bloating, reflux, reflux, constipation, diarrhea, and low energy are running your life, Renee will help you connect the dots. Digestion will calm down, food can feel easy again, and you don't have to figure it all out alone. You've got the Tummy Whisperer. Learn more at thetummywhisperer.com or call Renee at 847-207-2034. One more time, that's 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better.
File with TurboTax on Intuit Credit Karma. They help you get your biggest refund, and then we help you do more with it. Start filing today in the Credit Karma app.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Naveed Akram, the main suspect in the Bondi Beach shooting in which 15 people were killed at a Jewish festival in Sydney, appeared in court via video for the first time. Defense lawyer Ben Archbold told reporters it was too early to indicate any intention of pleas.
This is the start of the process. We haven't got the brief, okay? It's been adjourned now for another mention. On the next occasion when we have the brief, we might have a bit more to say, but that's all I've got to say today. Thank you.
The 24-year-old was wounded and his 50-year-old father was killed in a gun battle with police after the attack in December. Akram's brief appearance came as the court extended a gag order to protect the identities of the victims and survivors who have not chosen to identify themselves publicly. In other news, China is expanding its visa-free access. The AP's Lisa Dwyer has more.
China is letting British and Canadian citizens enter China without a visa as it tries to boost tourism and business. The change takes effect Tuesday and adds the UK and Canada to a list of 79 countries with visa-free access. Travelers can stay up to 30 days for tourism, business, exchanges, or family visits. Many Europeans already qualify, as do citizens of a number of other countries. Visitors from the United States and a few other places can enter for 10 days if they are in transit to a third destination. The policy ends at the end of the year for most countries. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
The U.S. government shutdown showed no signs of ending yesterday after congressional Democrats and Republicans failed to reach a deal on legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security. At the Winter Olympics in Italy, Norway is leading the way with 26 medals, followed by Italy with 22. The U.S. has a total of 17, including 5 gold medals. The complete list at apnews.com. This is AP News.
AP Sports, I'm Gethin Coolbaugh. Tyler Reddick won the Daytona 500 in a car owned by Michael Jordan when Chase Elliott crashed in a battle for the win on the final lap.
To be able to do it the way that we did and just be in the mix at the end is everything we could have asked for.
Anthony Edwards scored 32 points across 3 mini-games and earned NBA All-Star Game MVP honors after leading the Stars past the Stripes 47-21 in the final. At the Winter Olympics, Austin Matthews had 2 goals as the U.S. men's hockey team routed Germany 5-1 to earn the number 2 seed in the knockout round. Norway cross-country star Johannes Hosfoot Klæbo has won his Winter Games record 9th gold medal, and in golf, Colin Morikawa birdied the 18th to win the Pebble Beach Pro-Am for his first win in more than 2 years. Gethin Coolbaugh, AP Sports.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Skies will become mostly sunny here for today with a high into the mid-60s. Breezy southwest winds increase around 15 to 20 miles per hour, gusting as high as 30. And then for tonight, skies become mostly cloudy, a low near 40. Tuesday, partial sunshine, a high of 57 degrees. Wednesday, a slight chance for rain early, becoming sunny, high of 64. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 39.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Raise the bar on performance and style in a brand new Porsche from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse and test drive our extensive selection, like the 2026 Porsche Macan. Right now, lease the 2026 Macan for only $949 a month for 39 months. Discover performance like no other when you visit the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park or PorscheExchange.com. 8,519 due signing for qualified buyers. Excludes tax, title, license, and doc fee. No security deposit required. Expires 3/2/26.
This is WCPT 820, where facts